Dzień dobry. How are you all today? The session that I've prepared for you all is called Defending Your Focus. Now, I feel oddly at home here in Poland. I grew up in a Polish household. I'm kind of Canadian through and through, I suppose, but half Polish by blood. So I feel oddly just welcome here. So thank you so much for having me. Half Polish, quarter English, quarter nobody in the family really knows, but 100% happy to be here with you all. So my name is Chris, and I study the science of personal productivity for a living. And I don't know if you've ever encountered much in the way of personal productivity advice, but if you have, one of the very first things you probably realized is, oh my gosh, there is a lot of it out there. You walk down the aisles at the bookstore and you see books on how to think like Leonardo da Vinci and eat that frog. There are a lot of experts out there who are more than happy to consult with you on their 10-step, all rights reserved solution for becoming more productive. And then there are the websites that promise to help us live this perfectly productive life. But here's the thing about all this advice, is reading about productivity is fun, but for every minute we spend doing so, we have to make that time back and then some, right? Or else, what are we really doing with our time reading this advice? And a lot of the advice out there does fall into this category. There are incredible books out there, such as Atomic Habits, Getting Things Done, that allow us to earn back time. And there's great scientific literature, my favorite area to explore, that contains this wealth of productivity advice. But if this advice falls on this side of the spectrum, then you can kind of travel on over and see all the BS that falls over on this side. Life hacks are one of my favorite examples of a kind of advice that falls into this category that we don't necessarily earn back our time with. This one's actually quite handy. If you put a wooden spoon on top of a pot of boiling water, it pops all the bubbles. Prevents the water from boiling over. It's amazing. But they get absurd relatively quickly. Maybe, you made this delicious bagel sandwich, but you can't find a sandwich container to pack it for lunch. Well, just get an old CD spindle and use that. Or, I like this next one. Maybe you're relaxing at home. You had a long week. You're unwinding. You can't find slippers or sandals nearby. Well, just get a couple of water bottles and fashion. I love the hairy legs in this photo. This next one, last life hack. Maybe you're reading one of these great productivity books, but you can't find a bookmark anywhere nearby. What are you to do? Well, just use some ketchup. So that is so disgusting. But there's a lot of noise embedded within this productivity space. And so I've taken it upon myself to try to filter out the advice that works from the stuff that doesn't. And here's the fascinating thing about productivity, is it really comes down to one thing at the end of the day: intention. We don't become more productive by working faster, more frantically. We become most productive by working deliberately and intentionally on what is truly important every single day. And in this pursuit, there are three main ingredients that we must manage in order to be more productive. There's our time. Time management has always been integral to this pursuit of productivity, right? And as long as we work around other people, we'll have to manage our time. But when we do knowledge work for a living, when the basis of productivity has shifted from the factory to the mind, other ingredients matter too. Attention. If you can't focus, on what you're spending your time on. How good will your productivity be? Energy is a third one. It's the fuel that we burn to be productive each and every day. So, we got time for one of these ingredients today. Let's focus in on our attention. Now, one of them, I never find academic research that kind of inspiring to action. But one stat that I still remember encountering it to this day. It related to how long we focus on one thing before we get distracted or interrupted. On average, when we're doing work in front of a computer, especially when our phone is nearby, we focus on one thing for just 40 seconds before we switch to doing something else. But here's the thing. Here's the curious thing. The problem isn't what we think it is. You know, we think the problem is that we're too busy, we have so much noise, there's so much going on. But this is merely a symptom of the real, actual problem, which runs far, far more deeply than any of this. We are busy, and it can be argued that we're too busy as far as our productivity is concerned. But we actually crave busyness in the first place. Not only this, though, but on a chemical, foundational, neurological level, our mind rewards us every time we engage with something novel, right? So this is called the novelty bias. So every time we engage with something novel, every 40 seconds, for example, we get a hit of dopamine in our mind, which makes us feel as though pleasure is ever right around the corner. And so we get this chemical reward. We wake up, we're lying in bed, we pull out our phone, and then they messaged me overnight. And we bounce over to a different distraction. 40 seconds after that, maybe we go on TikTok. 40 seconds after that, well, maybe we stay longer on TikTok because there's so many novelty hits. 40 seconds after that, maybe we go to email, then we go to the news. We bounce around in this dopamine-fueled feedback loop. And in the moment, it's difficult to look away. Let me present to you Exhibit A, Dex, the orange cat. These are the top 5 career paths for your orange cat. Office stapler. I love Dex, the orange cat. You think they added those sound effects? I don't know. Mechanic. Good job, Dex. Gardener. Okay, I could watch this all day, but I'll stop the video there. We get the novelty, right? Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes we want to entertain ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we get the dopamine, we get the stimulation, a lot of the times our intention is really to do something else. We also get the distraction. Often when we don't want to in the first place. So let's get tactical here. What can we do about this phenomenon? When it comes to thinking about the distractions and the interruptions that we face over the course of the day, there are 2 criteria that I believe are worth focusing on and separating out our distractions by. The first of which is whether or not we have control over them arising. This should change how we relate to them in the first place. And the second is some distractions are great and some just are a pain in the neck and they get in the way of what we want to do. So the second criteria is whether they're annoying or fun. And so drawing a similar grid like this for your own work, for your own life, can really support this foundation of intentional work. So, annoying ones, let's fill out the grid. Office visitors, loud colleagues. Then we have the fun ones, right? Somebody showing a cat video. calls from loved ones, we can't control these from arising, but we can control how we relate to them after it is that they do, by dealing with them and getting back on track, or enjoying the fun ones. But luckily for us all, and for our productivity, and for our attention, and for the impact that we can make through our work in all three of these ingredients, the ones that we can control far, far outnumber the ones we cannot. Email is a good example of this. Our phone is another good example of this. So let's get tactical even further and deal with these ahead of time. My all-time favorite productivity strategy for dealing with email is conducting message sprints. So we all have this fundamental tension with the work that we do. We all do work that's focused and requires just this deep concentration of effort. And then we have the work that's collaborative. And so it involves other people. We collaborate, we move information around. And interruption is a necessary byproduct of doing work that is collaborative. And so how the heck can we find some modicum of balance between these two types of work that we do? Well, message sprints is one of my favorite ways of doing so. And all you do is you set a timer for 10, for 15, for 20 minutes, however long you got. And in that time, you blow through as many messages as you possibly humanly can. Email, text messages, instant messages, direct messages, oh my, you can deal with it all. Then you shut it down. You create a boundary around that distracted collaborative work. And if you do 4 or 5 of these a day or something, people won't have to wait long for a response. You'll get that focused effort. Second rule, suggestion, take what works for you and leave the rest. Personal productivity is personal, but it's the 5-sentence rule. So all this is you put a little note in your email signature that says something along the lines of, to respect your time and mine, I keep every email I send to 5 sentences or less. People love getting shorter messages, and it's so refreshing to be able to send them. One of my favorite strategies as well. What about this thing that sits in our pocket all day long? There is a mode on our phone that leads us to spend a fraction of the amount of time that we usually spend on the device that doesn't change much of any of the functionality of the machine. And what it is it's called grayscale mode. Now, it's buried in the iPhone. You have to go into settings, accessibility, settings, general accessibility, color filters, and then turn on grayscale mode. Or you can just say, hey Siri, turn on grayscale mode. I don't think that triggered anybody's phone, but that works too. Oh, it triggered my own. It was already on though. So this disables all of the color psychology on the device. And so a news website that cranks up the saturation of an image to be more stimulating, more novel, disables it. Incredibly handy. Social media website, right, that affects the way we feel, disables the color psychology for that too. Quick story on this note. Notice how apps make you feel. This is something I don't believe we're connected enough with regard to using our phone. The other day, to share a little story, my wife, Arden, and I, we were hanging out in the living room, and she was tapping and, swiping around on her phone, and she had this forlorn look come over her face. And I asked her, Arden, you look kind of bummed out, no offense, but what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm on Tinder. No, she wasn't on Tinder. She was on Instagram, and if you see her Instagram, it's like all puppies and zoo accounts. But it goes to show that just because something stimulates the mind doesn't mean that it makes us happy, especially when it leads to more dopamine through the novelty bias. So, managing our time, attention, and energy. I am out of time, but thank you so much for having me here.